Let's go over how to make a strumming pattern from scratch. To start out, I'm going to go to the chords section and select the automatic chords mode. That's the mode that lets you hold down notes in the main playing range, and then it will automatically translate those into a full guitar voicing. And then let's go to the strum section, and I'll just start out with the initialized preset, right? So there's no strumming data right here because I'm going to create a pattern from scratch. So what I'd like to do is have an idea in mind for what I want the strumming pattern to sound like. And in this case, I want it to sound like this. I'm just going to kind of play it in roughly using the single strum downstroke and upstroke keys. Right? So if I were to count that out, you'll notice that I need a 16th note division. And it's important to figure out which note division you need, as soon as possible, right? Because it's a little bit more difficult if you've programmed in your entire strumming pattern and then suddenly you need to add in a 16th note, then it's going to take a little time having to adjust your pattern or even rewrite it, to compensate for the change of note division. So in that pattern that I just played, I start out with a strum, on the 1, of course, and then on the of 1, and then the and of 2, and of 3, and then on the downbeat, of the 4, right? So obviously this is a 4/4 strumming pattern. And because of that, I'll leave the beats per measure set to 4. And we'll just go with a single bar length for the pattern. So at this point, I like to just enter in all of the strums, right? So I'm going to put one right here on the downbeat of the 1, and then one right there, and of the 2, and of the 3, and then right on the downbeat of the 4, right? So you'll notice that when I added those strums, it kind of figured out the direction of the strum automatically. So basically all the upbeats get played with a upstroke, and then the downbeats are played with a downstroke. And that's going to be true for most all strumming patterns. You can change the direction around, but just for the added convenience, it automatically sets those. So if I play the strumming pattern now, it's not going to sound amazing because I haven't set, any dynamics, and it's strumming all the strings and all the strums are happening at the same speed. But here's what that sounds like at this point. All right, so nothing amazing yet, and I'll show you how to really improve the pattern. For example, you don't necessarily want to strum all the strings for every strum. So for example, on the main accents, I probably do want to strum all the notes in the chord. But for something like this, I just want to pick up the highest few strings on the guitar, for this upstroke. And then for this downstroke, I'm just going to strum the lowest, 3 strings. And then, let me see, probably a few more for this strum. And then this final accent here, I am going to strum the entire chord right there as well. So let's listen to that now. So even that simple change really made a big difference. The other thing is, I want to have the strumming mute right here on the downbeat of the second measure. So you could select the rest articulation, and it would sound like this. Here, let me play it a little louder. But another way to do that, to mute the strings, is to use some of the effects. So in this case, I'm going to put a string slap there. Let's hear it now. Okay, I like the way that turned out, so I'm going to keep that string slap. And then at this point, we can start filling in some of the details. So I'm going to adjust some of the dynamics. I'm going to lower that one slightly, lower that one slightly. Same with this one. Maybe this one just ever so slightly. Now let's listen to it. Make that one a little bit louder. And then I want to put in a little bit of and not really an anticipation, but kind of like a pickup to this, the and of the 3, and I'm going to make it pretty subtle. So I'm going to turn down the velocity and just have it strum the last couple of, the highest couple of strings on the guitar. So it'll sound like this. Another thing that you can do is lead into the next measure, and it'll help the strumming pattern, flow better from measure to measure by putting in, some kind of subtle strums at the end. And I'm just going to strum the lowest few strings. It sounds like this now. So those subtle little strums can really, add a lot of realism to your strumming pattern. And you can add in more of those. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard with it, right? Because otherwise you end up with a really busy sounding pattern. But let's hear it now. I just added in another one of those. So that's really subtle. I can also at this point start altering some of the strum speeds. And to do that, you just grab on this handle in the middle, and move it around. This would be a very slow strum, right? And then this would be a very, very quick strum. So I'm just going to kind of make it a little bit slower than it was. And then let's see, make these a little bit slower as well. Maybe this one is a little bit too slow. Pretty much ended up, with the strum speed back where I started, but, that's really what you've got to do is just experiment and listen and, see what sounds best, for the strumming pattern that you're working on. Now, the other thing that you can do, at this point I could save the strumming pattern and then make a variation of it, but let's start experimenting with some of the other articulations. Probably most commonly the palm mute articulation. I'm going to put a palm mute right here, and right here as well. Kind of, add a little bit more dynamic to the strumming pattern by incorporating those other articulations. Okay, let's make these palm mutes as well. Or actually, we could even just make those fully muted notes. That's nice. Kind of got a little bit of a chug sound right there. Let's try putting mute there as well. Move up the dynamic on that. Okay, that's pretty good. So, at this point, you could consider the pattern complete, And then the other thing to try is just, try a few other chords and just see how it works with different chords as well and chord progressions. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.